In this lesson, we're going to learn how to use multiple cameras in a cinematic. Alright, so we've had a couple of cameras in our scene for a couple of lessons, and I want to really utilize them and really show you how to use the director group to its fullest potential. So to begin, I want to take this cinematic and I want to have it fade in. So fade from black, show us the long shot of the level, so kind of get an overview of what's there, and then I want it to switch to my next camera and then play its animation, and then I want to switch to another camera, which we'll add here in just a little while. So to begin, let's go ahead and open up our Matinee Actor Cinematic, and with this opened up, we're going to create a fade track. Now, a fade track is going to be created inside of your director group. So you're going to right-click on the director group, and it's going to give you this long list of tracks that you can add. Now, in this, at the close to the bottom of the menu, I know it's kind of going off the screen here, but you'll see Add New Fade Track. It's going to add it directly below your director track. So with the fade, we can actually animate how long it's going to fade. So let's add a key, and it's going to add it right at frame 0. And let's take our time slider from frame 0. Let's go to, let's say that it's going to fade in for, let's do 2 seconds. Okay. So then we'll go ahead and add a key there. Now it's going to fade in and out from there. Now we have to make sure that we're getting the right values for this to work. So really quickly, if we go to the first keyframe on our fade, and we right-click on it, you'll see that we have Set Time and Set Value. Let's set the value here. Notice that the value is set to 0 right now. 0 means that there is no fade whatsoever. So if I set this to 1, it's going to be full on black. Then, if I come in, and I select the last keyframe and I right click on it and I say set value, you'll see that it's set to 0. So let's go ahead and preview this in our scene. What I'm going to do is I'm going to back up here, and let's take this and just simply hit play. Now it's not going to fade from our first camera. You'll notice that it's playing the second camera and it's fading in across that. So how do we get it to fade on the first camera and then play the animation of the second one? This is done very easily. Remember our director group. It's only showing us what camera 2 is doing. So we need to add a key to tell it to show us what camera 1 is doing. And so the fade is going to happen no matter what camera is selected. So let's take the keyframe of our director group. Let's take this camera here, and let's hold down Control. And let's drag this out. And you'll notice that the camera 2 is shortening up. Now obviously my animation is going to go a little bit longer than this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the N key of that, and I'm going to take this out. Let's do something like 6 seconds for right now, just to give ourselves plenty of room. Then we're going to take the preview, and we're going to take the preview of this. We're going to left click and drag that out. Let's go to let's just go ahead and set it to 6 anyway. So we have our movement track of our camera 02. That's going from frame 0 to 2 seconds. Let's go ahead and back up and let's move those. So to move a keyframe, you'll simply hold down Control on the selected keyframe, and then you'll left click and drag that to its desired position. So let's go ahead and put this at 5 seconds. Let's take this one and hold down Control, and let's put this at 3 seconds. So that way we get 2 seconds of movement there. Now camera 2 on the director, you'll see that it's going to show us what's happening inside of camera 2 at the first second. Okay, so let's go ahead and hold down Control, left click on the point there, or the keyframe there, and let's take that to the 3rd second. So it's going to begin playing here, it's going to begin its movement, and then we're going to cut to that at the 3rd second there. Alright, so now let's show what camera 1 is doing. Let's take our time slider back to 0. Let's add a key, and we're going to say camera 01. Now camera 01 is not showing up in our director group here. That's because we haven't added camera 01 into our tracks. So let's go ahead and select our second camera. Now you'll notice that it looks black here, and that's because it's showing the fade in this. So with this camera selected in our scene, you could also go up to your scene outliner if you're having a hard time finding that. Let's rename this. Let's call it camera 01 just to make it easy, and let's also select the other one. Call that camera 02. There we go. So with camera 01 selected, let's go back to Matinee, and let's right click and let's add a new camera group. Let's call it camera 01. It's going to go below camera 02. It doesn't work alphabetically. Okay, and we can't move that, so we're going to leave it right where it's at. All right, so now with that, there's not going to be any movement on it or anything like that. We just want to be able to look through the camera, and we want it to fade in from that. So let's go ahead and go back to our director group, our director track, I should say, and let's add a key, and we're going to use camera 01. Notice that it's now showing up in that list. By adding this, you'll see that it adds camera 01, and it goes from 0 until it meets the second keyframe for camera 02. Perfect. So whenever we play this inside of our scene, we should see that entire cinematic. So let's go ahead and just simply hit play. Before we do this, we'll just have to close down Matinee. We could come in and just say save all, and it's going to close it down automatically for us, and it's also going to save our level. Okay, and then we'll just simply hit play. Now you'll notice that that fades in, and then the cinematic starts. Now you'll also notice that there's the crosshair is showing up in our cinematic. We may not want that. That's going to be one of those things that we'll take care of, because we know we can also shoot while we're going through that cinematic itself. Okay, so very cool. So we've learned how to use multiple cameras. Now one thing that I don't necessarily like about this is it's fading in, but then it jumps automatically to camera 02. What happens if we want to fade out and we want to fade into camera 02? Well, we'll use the exact same techniques that we've been using in this case. So let's go ahead and go to Matinee Actor. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to tell it, all right, camera 01, you're going to fade in, okay, and we're going to have you fade in for 2 seconds. But then before you go to camera 02, we want you to fade out. And so I'm going to go to the 3rd second here. We're going to add a key. Make sure you're on your fade track. We're going to add a key there, and we're going to right click, and we're going to set its value back to 1, meaning that it's going back to black. Okay, and then you can come in and you could say, all right, let's have it fade in for a second, so fade back in from camera 02. So let's add a key there, right click, set the value. In this case, it needs to be at 0. Okay, so that way we can see exactly what's happening here. And then we've got our fade in and fade out. We could also add another camera, and we could cut that as well, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it alone for right now. Let's go ahead and go to File and Save All. There we go. And then let's simply hit play. You'll see that it fades in and out, fades in for our next camera, and there we go. Perfect. So one final thing. If you want that camera to fade out to the end, you need to make sure that you add another keyframe. But you want to be careful with your keyframes because they go from one keyframe to the next. So this last keyframe, its value is set to 0. So the next keyframe needs to be set to 0, and then at the last it needs to be set to 1 to be able to fade it out to black. Okay. All right, so that's how we can use multiple cameras in our scene. And so what we want to do now is we want to take this just a little bit further, because now I have the problem of my player being able to walk around, shoot, and also show the HUD while the cinematic is playing, and that's a problem. So what we'll do is we'll talk about how to get rid of that in our next lesson.